For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Good evening. Welcome to today's entrepreneurial program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business. My name is Dan Delmar, along with FL's Josh Miller. Good evening, Josh.
Hello, Dan.
And this evening on the program, we'll be chatting with Bruce Conquy of LineX Quebec.
Yeah, Bruce Conquy is we're going to hear the story of both franchisor and franchisee, and that's it's interesting when you're on both sides.
So Bruce is coming up in a little bit. We'll also talk about doing business in the U.S. a little later on the program with our tax expert, Ernie Furt. But first, some entrepreneurial news and notes of the week. Let's start by just chatting about the C2 conference.
Which you attended, Dan.
I did. I attended it, took in many lectures, as many as I could last week, and a pretty interesting event. And I wrote about this last week, and I'm going to be touching on it in my Gazette column again on Wednesday. But I think it's interesting that Montreal is becoming this creative hub where people come to inspire, to conceive, to make deals. This happens at Just for Laughs too. There's a big industry conference. There have been TV shows that I've seen made coming out of ideas at Just for Laughs. So people, I think, flock to Montreal to be inspired and to work with our creative class, and then they go do business elsewhere. And so the challenge, I think, and I'll pose this to you, Josh, is how do we keep them here? How do we sort of keep a few multinationals here and there, let them encourage them to hopefully do more business here, so we can maybe slowly regain our international status?
So it's not about having a Montreal birthday every year.
Yeah,
376, 377. We'll just keep bringing them.
It won't be that costly.
I think Montreal is an easy city to visit. I think comparatively to some other large cities, it's not as expensive. There's no question you have your expensive moments, and I'm sure hotel rates can go up. But comparatively speaking, you want to compare it to Toronto and New York and LA and Chicago, it's relatively inexpensive, especially where the Canadian dollar sits versus the US. How do you keep them here? I do think that Montreal is building up. Montreal has become known for the gaming side. There's no question that AI or the tech side of it is growing. Certainly from a film aspect and editing, Montreal has certainly been around quite a number of years. Although I've heard both sides of, we've got some great talented here, but we have some opinionated talent that are a little bit stubborn. So sometimes it clashes. How do you keep them here? I think it's a slow effect. I've read that somebody's trying to compare Montreal to the early days of Silicon Valley, so with our AI, with artificial intelligence building up. I don't know if we're quite there yet, but has to start somewhere. And I think it's not a bad start for Montreal. But how you keep them here is having enough companies and enough investment opportunity and knowledge to do that. And I think it's not a bad start for Montreal. Great turnout at C2. I wasn't there, Dan, but I saw many pictures and certainly some Facebook Live events and heard from a few people. Scads of people. So it's certainly well attended. Stay afterwards. I think you can get some decent traction, but it will definitely take time.
So if you're advising the premier, where do you target your investments? Where do you say, we have to build here in order to attract these businesses? Is it infrastructure that's a lot of the problem? I heard a lot of that at the conference as well. People were looking at, things being the orange cones and everything and not being particularly inspired by that.
The easy answer is yes. It's always infrastructure. It's been infrastructure since the day I remember being born in Montreal. It really, it's always that old joke. There's two seasons. There's winter and there's construction. So yes, easy to say, difficult to do unless there have been some major changes. I think it's more than that. I think it's really either government programs that can help entrepreneurs reach out more to the people around the world. I think it's more about putting money in the right sectors. You can't, infrastructure aside, because you're always going to have that, and you look at major cities around the world. There's traffic, there's congestion. As a matter of fact, traffic's bad in Montreal, but it's pretty bad in a lot of other locations, even if there aren't orange cones. Putting money in specific sectors where C2 is, you saw a bunch of lectures. It was probably a lot around the tech side. Yep. No question about it. So I think putting money in those areas will help entrepreneurs kind of reach out and say, okay, if you're looking to go out and invest or market yourselves, well, maybe here's some marketing dollars. Here's some dollars to search for financing. Here's something that will expand that side of it.
Let's move on to other technological news. The restaurant industry, according to this piece, is kind of, experiencing its own tech revolution. This is from the Financial Post.
Well, this is, the Reservation software out there is continuous. You know, Open Table, it certainly started with that. Then it was reaching out. You have Bookenda now, which is kind of mixed with YP Dine, a little bit of that, and it's there. However, the restaurants that are using this, that are all, it's great. It's tough to still manage. You still have to manage your tables. You still have to manage the people behind it and dealing with the time frame and all that. And I think there is still much to do or much to see about that reservation technology. But it's coming. That being said, I use Open Table all the time. I use Bookend all the time. It's really simple. It's really easy. And you just have to know if there's no tables available, call the restaurant, because they usually keep some in reserve that aren't all online.
This also from the Financial Post, the Airbnb of warehouses. It's called Flex, and it's growing pretty rapidly in the States.
It's pretty interesting. There's so many people are always looking to save a buck. There's no doubt about it. Entrepreneurs that want to ship everywhere, that need to, or that have excess inventory for only a small part of the year. It costs a lot of money to warehouse, and certainly, depending where you warehouse it and where you ship it, there's no doubt that it can cost you that much more for transportation. And air travel and air cargo is very expensive. Ground travel, ground transport, much cheaper. So Flex built on this, and they basically went to different warehouses around North America. This is really mostly in the United States, and said, do you have any excess capacity? Can you hold goods for other people? So it started with that, with just simply that. And people would connect in different cities. Yes, please hold my goods, and they'll have it in a separate spot. And then about a year ago, they started a pick and pack. So it's evolving to that Airbnb framework where, yes, if I have 20 pallets that I just don't have room in my own warehouse, where can I store them? Of course, location is important, and I believe they have over 500 locations in warehouses that are within their framework today, which is pretty good, maybe even 550 or 600. And I think from a business standpoint, from a cost saving, not only in a warehouse cost, but in transportation costs, because if you can get it closer to your end customer, then ground transport is far cheaper than air. I think it's still nascent, it's still early, but what an interesting concept.
Uber Freight was also announced last week. That's another use of artificial intelligence that'll probably reduce significant costs in the transport business.
You're just increasing the competition, and when there's lots of competition, the price falls. The thing that you have to be aware of is, where's the service factor? Where is the credibility behind the delivery people? Are they going to get your goods to the location at the right time and in the right state?
Finally, another form of technological disruption, this in the travel industry. A startup wants to transform travelers into their own travel agents.
We see it all the time. You look at TripAdvisor, you look at all these different blogs, people that people put up blogs, and other people that you don't know really listen to it. When I go on a trip, I look at TripAdvisor to see where what hotels are good, what restaurants are good, what certain sites in a certain area. This is somebody building on other people and letting them get money to share their experiences. If you can share your experience, if you travel a lot or you've heard of certain places, you can create your own website super easy, list some of these places online, blog about it, and make money doing it. And for the people that blog without making money, here's your chance to do it and get a few bucks out of it. Do you have to be trained? I don't know about that, but you certainly can travel and share your experience.
Sounds like a great idea. Coming up next, we'll talk to Bruce Conquy of LineX Quebec, an example of entrepreneurial success in a very niche field. We'll talk to Bruce in a little bit and talk about taxes and doing business with the U.S. Later in the program with our tax specialist, Ernie Furt.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Welcome back to today's Entrepreneur, inspiring stories from outstanding business people. Dan Delmar and FL's Josh Miller with you. And this evening, we'll welcome Bruce Conquy of LineX Quebec. Welcome to the program, Bruce.
Thank you.
First, real simple, tell us about your business, LineX.
Well, LineX is a spray-on protective coating. We can apply it, and the majority of what we usually do is pickup trucks, but we can spray it on anything from wood, concrete, fiberglass, metals. With the proper preparation, we can spray just about anything at all. It'll protect it against abrasion, corrosion, In some cases, even explosions.
Explosions, really? Because the product is that strong.
We have about 12 different products, so they go from anything. We do have a product that was actually made specifically to protect against explosions. We actually sprayed it on the Pentagon, the federal building in New York, most of the APOs in the U.S. So yeah, and a whole bunch of different places. Just here in Montreal, I think we have 2 consulates and an embassy. So, or 3 consulates, or 3 embassies and a consulate, something like that.
We don't need to know which ones. We're not going to test it. It's okay.
Anyway.
So where did this start? Where did this all begin for you?
For me or for the company?
For you at the moment.
It all started here. I mean, we started off, we were doing car detailing. And one of our clients, we had a contract to do all their cars. And one of our clients said, you should look at this product. And I said, well, okay. So I looked into it for about 10 months, actually. And see, at that time, there's about 3 different products that were out there. And I went to visit each one. One was in Texas, one was in California, and one was in Canada. And I went to visit every one and ended up picking LineX. And for me, it was the best product out there. It was also the most expensive, but it was the best.
Now, how long ago was that?
That was 16 years ago.
What were you doing before LineX came along? Like, did you have training in this business at all?
Absolutely zero. I come from a computer background. We used to do software, but absolutely nothing had to do with this. And that's the beauty of this business, is that you don't really have to know the product, because we can train you. But you have to know business, just like anything else. Any successful business, you need to know about business.
No question. Now, when you have this product, you did your due diligence at the beginning. What were you looking for specifically? Was it all about the product? Because you became a franchisee at first?
At first, when we originally went, it was just to buy a franchise. What I was looking for was 2 things. The product, because you can't sell a product that just isn't worthy. If you don't believe in it, you can't sell it. The second thing was who I was doing business with. For me personally, if I don't feel like I can work with this person, I don't want to work with them. It's just going to give me more aggravation later on in life. And after meeting the 3 people, the one person that I really could deal with is who we went with. And it's been fantastic since then.
Does it take you long to read people? I know that, we speak with a lot of entrepreneurs, and there's no question there's a lot of business partners out there. And sometimes you can get fooled and whatever. So did it take you a while to really get the feel of these people? And over the years, have you learned how to read people a little bit better?
Initially, no. The people that we originally met when we got the franchise, they were phenomenal. They were from day one to the last day when they sold their business, phenomenal. They absolutely were. And have I been able to change? Yes. When I thought I could read people when we started selling franchises originally and what they are now are light years difference. You learn by your experience. I mean, it's not something, reading people is one thing, but people are chameleons and they can change very quickly.
No question about it. And you did go from franchisee or buying one franchise to ultimately being a franchisor within Quebec. And when we come back from the break, we'll talk about that and lots more.
We're chatting with Bruce Conquy of LineX Quebec on Today's Entrepreneur.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Chatting with Bruce Conquy of LineX Quebec. This is a spray. Bruce, maybe you can explain the product a little bit more. So you spray it on, a truck bed, the side of a wall, perhaps, and it protects against fire. Can you explain?
Well, it all depends. Like I said, we have about 12 different chemicals. So the one we use the most, and the one we apply on the majority of the basis, is on the back of a pickup truck. So we'll actually prepare the surface, mask off the truck. So we just want the area what we're going to spray, because the thing does come out at 2,500 pounds of pressure. So it flies everywhere. And it's also about 230 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's really hot. And it literally dries in 3 seconds. So it's literally in and out, and
It's a quick application and a very sturdy product. So let's come back to the franchisor, franchisee. When you first went to go find this product, you were looking to just be a franchisee at that point?
Correct.
Where did you cross over into saying, hey, maybe I can do a little bit more with that?
Well, we were sitting down. I actually spent about 3 days with these people, and they sat down and we said, okay, we made a deal to become a franchise. And then we were just sitting
with
down.
A certain territory, I gather.
Correct. Well, the island of Montreal, basically. And then they said, well, look, we aren't doing anything. We're English people. We don't speak French. We don't have anything or happening in Quebec. So they literally asked me if I wanted to take over the province, and of course, it always comes down to dollars and cents. And we came down to an amount that everybody was comfortable with, and took it over from there. We actually worked 3 years to learn the business before selling a single franchise. Yeah.
How was the first franchisee experience? Was it tough to find that person?
It wasn't. What it was, at that time when people come to see us because they knew the product, whether it be from the U.S. or something that they heard or through a friend or whatever, they knew of the product. So it wasn't that tough. What was tougher was trying to sell the product because nobody ever heard of the product here.
So it was a lot of education. Do you still have to educate today?
Every day. Even when we hire salesmen or when we train our new franchises, we don't tell them, don't go out and sell, go out and educate. Because there's a lot of other, we'll call them similar products for lack of a better term, but they're not similar. We have a quality product at a very fair price, and we have probably the best warranty on the market.
The franchisor, you still need to keep a relationship with the franchisor. They still assist you in educating, because information, I got to think, isn't just you. It's really starts at the top, because that's where all the chemicals are made and done. So was the franchisor helpful in giving you some of those educational materials?
Even now, they still do. The beauty about our system is that it doesn't always flow from the top down. It can flow from the bottom up. Whereas every one of our applicators, and we have over 500 applicators in North America, they feed that information to our PR people, and they then disseminate it to all the franchises. So if anybody has ever done something that's unique or different, we all know about it. We create case studies. We have training sessions. It's amazing. And then from there, we just pass it on.
And I think there's a lot to be learned from the franchisees. Communication is great, but we're going to talk about when you went from one franchisee to multiple franchisees and some of the lessons and tricks and tips you've learned.
Plus, what you need to know to do business in the U.S. with our tax expert, Ernie Furt. That is on the way.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Welcome back to Today's Entrepreneur, presented by FL Fuller Landau, a program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business. My name is Dan Delmar, along with FL's Josh Miller, and this evening we're chatting with Bruce Conquy of LineX Quebec. Bruce makes a spray-on product that coats and protects truck beds, boats, and more. Bruce, could you tell us a little bit about maybe some of the funnier requests you've had over the years, applications for the product?
Well, funny, we've had a lot of bizarre ones, but I think the one that sticks out in my mind is we had a skateboard club. And they were having an issue when they fell down off their skateboards, and the way things are maintained around here, they have rocks and they land them on their backs. So we basically took their t-shirts and we sprayed the backs of them. And they don't have any more mishaps, but of course laundry is always a problem.
Can't necessarily wash it as easily, but hey, at least your back is protected.
That's right.
Let's come back to franchise or franchisee, because I find it fascinating, and it's great to hear from both sides of it. So as a franchisee, you experience some great experience, some great experience. You had a lot of good results from dealing with the franchisor. They were very helpful in you getting to learn the product. Application is certainly a good part of it, education. Now flip the tables to the franchisee. Where did you take from your lessons with the franchisor and apply them to the franchisees?
I have to say that in my experiences in this particular industry, we've been very, very fortunate. The technical support and the sales support that we've received from our franchisor has been second to none. And if it wasn't for them, I don't know if I'd be sitting here right now. What we offer we try and pass that down as much as we can to our franchises, because it's what made us where we are, and we want them to be where we are or bigger. That'd be fine by me. I have no problem with that.
Now, selection of a franchisee. There's no doubt. How many franchisees do you have today?
16.
16. From your first franchisee to the 16th franchisee, did the selection criteria change?
Dramatically.
What did you learn from number 1 to number 16?
When I first started, I thought the most important thing was the application of the product. And although the application is very important, it can be trained. Knowing business, knowing sales can be trained, but not as efficiently as anything else. So we've changed from people who are hands-on to more business-oriented people. Said they can always hire an applicator. We can train them. Or they can applicate. It's fine. But if you don't know business and you don't know sales, it's just not going to work.
Now, at the beginning of the program, you said it was very important for you to be able to work with the people, to really be able to see eye to eye, to understand. How much does that form part of the criteria in selecting a franchisee?
It's extremely important. And I keep telling people, when you're buying a franchise or you're doing anything like that, it's like a marriage. You're going to be together for a very long time, and you're going to be speaking to each other on a daily basis and working with them. You have to be able to be confident in that they're going to take your brand and then take it to the level in their area. And it's extremely important.
Now let's switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about marketing. Marketing from day one, marketing today, as you get to know the product, marketing, that has certainly gone from print to social media. What worked for you then? What works for you now? What never worked for you?
Well, we found our product, now that people know about it, it's a whole different. When nobody knew about it, people had to touch it and feel it. So you couldn't do that with print. You couldn't do that with radio, and you couldn't do that with television because they can't touch. Although all those medias were necessary. But we used to do trade shows, and that's where we started seeing huge advancements. The first couple of years, people would walk up to us and go, well, what's this? And we'd go through our whole spiel. But by year 4, when we were doing the trade shows, we'd have clients that come over. And people would go, well, what's this? And our clients would answer for us while they were visiting us. So it got to be that. And what's interesting is that we went from 5 or 6 people, because everybody would talk about, oh, what's this? And we'd have to answer them, to 3 people, to 2 people, because everybody else was answering their questions for us. So it was really interesting.
Testimonials live and in person, you really can't beat that. What about the type of trade shows? Did you learn over years that some were better than others? Because we've gotten some mixed responses from different entrepreneurs over the years.
You would think, since we started off, our main focal point when we first started was the car industry. So you would think that would be where everything would come from. And ironically, it wasn't. We found that doing sub-shows, such as hunting and fishing shows, RV shows, those type of shows where people use their pickups and not just looking for one, those are the people those are the type of shows that really brought back something for us.
That sounds good. And today, how much does social media play a role in your business and your marketing?
It's changed dramatically. I mean, social media is, if you're not on Facebook and you don't do Twitter and you don't do Instagram, and I was late coming on board, to be honest with you, but it's huge. You can't do it without it.
Did your background was in computers in your previous lifetime?
My previous life.
Did that help at all? Like, transitioning into the social media world, or were you always pretty comfortable with that?
Well, no, I was always, with technology was always second nature to me, so that wasn't an issue. But knowing technology and knowing social media, not the same thing at all. I mean, it's a whole different lingo. It's a whole different way of doing things. And, we hired people to do it because you can't do everything. If you want to be a successful business, you have to surround yourself with good professionals.
You have a specialty product. For entrepreneurs listening, how do you sort of make that social media content engaging? What do you tell your social media people to post on Facebook? Say?
Well, we post a lot of pictures. We post a lot of videos. We have our own YouTube channel, which has some tremendous videos. Some are hysterical, some are informational, some are just unbelievable. So we use that. We use pictures. We use testimonials from other clients. We use all of that on our social media on a daily basis.
A picture of videos certainly says 1,000 words.
Yep. When
you first started this business, and I'm going to, again, switch gears, are you a planner? Like, how much did business plan play into your, when you first started, and your kind of day-to-day or year-to-year business life?
When we first started this, I made a business plan. It was a 5-year business plan. Within that 5-year business plan, I broke it down to quarterly, monthly, weekly, and daily plans, which is a little excessive at times, but I knew where I was going every single day. And when that 5-year expired, well, I made another 5-year. And I've been doing that for 16 years. And every day I update my sales. I know exactly where I am. I know exactly how much money, everything that's going on, I know on a daily basis. If you need to change something, if you wait 3 months, it's too late. I can change things on a dime based on what's going on in the marketplace. If you have a construction strike that's going on now, well, that slows business down. So you got to look at other avenues, and you got to do it quickly.
No question. Do you use software? You're on Excel?
I use Excel.
It's simple. And do you change it? I know you change it for specific events, like perhaps a strike, but how often do you really update it or change it?
Every year, at least once a year. And I looked at my forecast, either downgrade them, upgrade them, keep them the same, see where I've been successful the year before. Has it been more on this one or on this category, and adjust. It's the only way you can know where you're going.
When you're looking ahead, do you rely more on what your customers tell you, what your franchisors tell you, what your franchisees tell you, what your own internal team tell you? All of the above?
All of the above. Even the Tweety bird that comes down from the sky. You take information from anywhere that you can get it, take what's useful to you, and that's what you have to use.
Do you have formal meetings and formal gatherings or focus groups, or is it really just keeping your eyes and ears open?
Well, formal meetings. We have several meetings on an annual basis with the franchises. So we have a Quebec meeting, we have a national meeting, we have an international meeting. International meeting is every 2 years, and the Quebec and national meetings are every year. Within our own franchise, we meet almost daily whether it be 15 minutes or 5 minutes, but we understand what's going on. We discuss our schedules. We discuss everything that's going on that day.
Communication, no doubt, huge when you're running any type of business. Certainly when you're dealing with both franchisors and franchisees, because you got to have everybody on the same page.
And if you want to do business in the U.S., we'll chat with Ernie Furt next. He'll talk about taxes and all related issues. That is coming up next.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Inspiring stories from outstanding business people. Dan Delmar and FL's Josh Miller with you. We're joined by Bruce Conquy of LineX Quebec. We'll have Bruce's one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur coming up shortly. But first, we welcome back our tax expert, Ernie Furt from FL, to talk about what you need to know to do business in the States. Welcome back, Ernie.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And, we were talking with Bruce earlier, and his franchisor comes from the States. So naturally, there's a whole bunch of issues that could come into play. Not necessarily franchisor, but if you're a Canadian company and you're doing business, whether you're, it's a strategic arrangement with them, whether it's a supplier, a vendor, an employee, a consultant, there's so many different aspects to know, to take care of, to follow. It's a bit of a minefield. So I guess and we can maybe break it down a little bit, Ernie. If you're simply just selling into the States, you're a Canadian company, you have no real location there, whatever that means. We don't have to get into permanent establishment. That's a crazy topic to begin with. But if you're just selling into the States, are there requirements? Should the entrepreneur know and understand certain aspects?
The entrepreneur has to know a lot of things. He has to know if there's any sales tax with respect to his product. And sales tax varies from state to state. Unlike here, each sales tax is a state-oriented sales tax, and it works differently than a GST, QST. It works more like the old Quebec PST that we had pre-92. So what that is the end user pays. So they have to know the sales tax implications. They have to know if they have to file any income tax returns or franchise tax returns in those locations. And generally what we file for a lot of our clients when they do business in the States, and we file a U.S. tax return, which basically says, hello, U.S., we're doing business in the U.S. However, we don't have a permanent establishment in the United States. We're not subject to tax, but we're just telling you we're doing business here, and this is how much sales we're making.
What if you have a showroom in the States?
It varies. It varies state per state because none of the rules follow each other. And you go to showrooms, you have trade shows in various jurisdictions. If you have a trade show in New York and you go to the same trade show every year, you're going to be considered to have nexus in the state of New York. Other states are different. Certain states don't have any state taxes. Other states do. Other states have franchise tax nexus, income tax nexus. It varies, and it's so difficult. It's a big minefield, and you really have to look towards the professional down there and have somebody up here coordinate with that professional down in the U.S. so you can get a full-blown picture.
Because even if you don't have any tax to pay, but there's forms to file, you could still be on the hook for certain penalties.
Well, we have a client who has an independent salesperson in the state of Pennsylvania, and they have to prepare a full-blown Pennsylvania state return that probably costs them $1,500 or $2,000 to do, to pay $12 in tax. Honestly, $12 in tax, if not less. So,
but if you don't file it,
then you have penalties, and the penalties are usually very ugly. So the United States and the states rely a lot on the penalties, and they rely a lot on your compliance and your following the rules. And if you don't, that's when you can run into problems.
If an entrepreneur just wants to dip their toe into a jurisdiction like that might be more problematic, do you advise them to sort of not go there until they reach a certain amount of business?
It's not you want to increase your business. You want to get business from wherever you can. So you take a look and you determine where you want to wet those toes and how difficult it is to wet those toes. And what type of, volume are you going to be doing potentially within that state? A lot of entrepreneurs will go to New York State. They'll go to California because that's where the business is. There are not too many of my clients that have called me up and said, listen, I want to do business in Utah. Not too many, but there are clients who do business in Utah.
And I think, Dan, it also depends on, when you talk about volume, well, then what's the structure? And are you going to need a real office down there or not? I think there's a lot of factors that come into play when you're talking about volume and structure, and not necessarily just about taxes. But Ernie, you raise a point on the human resource side and dealing with different states and paying people. When we come back from the break, we'll try and explore that quickly.
Plus, we'll have Bruce's one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur. That's next.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Bruce Conquy on the way with his one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur, but first chatting with Ernie Furt about things you need to know before doing business in the States.
And Ernie, there are many companies that hire, like you said earlier, that hire people that work out of the States, whether it's a company, it's an individual, depends where they work. What are some of the things entrepreneurs should know before, or if they're going to hire somebody that's working in the States?
Well, if they're hiring somebody that's working in the States, you have to determine what do they create. Are they creating a filing presence for you or not in the States? Or vice versa, a U.S. company can hire a Canadian, and the Canadian person can work from their house and work for that U.S. company and do the work from the comforts of their living room, in all of their glory and underwear, sitting there. And people ask, well, do I have anything to file? Because the U.S. people always look to complete a form. They always look to complete something so they don't have to be on the hook for any withholding. So they'll ask you to fill out something called a W-8 Ben E. That's done for a variety of things, inclusive of personal services. So if you're sitting at home here in Montreal working for a U.S. company as an independent, you're not going to have any withholding, but you have to fill out the form. And a lot of people mistakenly think that form goes to the IRS. It does not. It just goes to the employer in case the IRS asks. So just fill out the forms, consult your accountant, and ensure you do things right.
Sounds like a plan. Thanks very much, Ernie. And as we approach the last moment of our show, we'll turn to Bruce Conquy of LineX Quebec and ask you, Bruce, what would be your one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur?
I'm going to give you a part A, part B. The most important thing is to know your business. Know where you're going, know which direction it's going, and take care of it. But treat your client. Your client is everything. If you don't treat your client properly, you're not going to have any, and you won't have a business.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Bruce. The quick takeaway, and we kind of glossed over it quickly, but Bruce did mention it, and he said, you can't know everything. You do have to rely on outside people, professionals, team, whatever it is, because you just can't know everything. So know what you don't know, and you'll be better off for it.
Thanks very much, Bruce of LineX Quebec, for stopping by. We appreciate the visit.
Thank you very much for having me.
And thanks to Ernie Furt as well. We're back for our season finale next week, next Monday night at 7. Stay tuned for that. Don't forget to catch up on past episodes at the community section at flmontreal.com. Have a good evening.